In a way, yes. I mean, it may have not been as popular as it was back then, but at least it's there, you know? The Teletubbies, obviously, in their original form, is the one that I'm sure many of us who were growing up in the 90s will remember for years and years to come, and then probably remember VHSs, especially. They had a Christmassy one where they were playing in the snow. That was a Christmassy themed episode that they did back in the early days of their. Obviously, will live on for many years. Yeah, you can watch all the newer ones on BBC iPlayer if you want to see what the new one's like. Most of us are going to stick to the original. Another program that, well, going back to the clay model programs, we do have to acknowledge another program that also made out of, I guess you could say it was made out of clay, that sort of material that made programs. Noddy had his own adventures called Toyland Adventures. He also had his own program called Noddy, but yeah, they kind of did like different varieties of Noddy, so that's why you can't really say Noddy. But some will call it Noddy because, yeah, that's what the show is usually called. It's called Noddy, and they had these like clay versions of the program where, funny enough, Noddy had her own ident, children's BBC at the time, so she was that popular, she had her own ident. Yeah, Noddy had all sorts of different spin-offs and all sorts of different things with the character from time to time, but I think the clay version is probably the one that people remember the most. But then they also had this weird thing that, yeah, they tried to do a version of Noddy is one of those characters who happens to have a older version of herself where they did the whole puppet version back in the 50s, which, I mean, depending if you remember that version, I think most people remember the more modernized, well, the slightly more modernized version compared to that version, but I'm sure if anyone remembers that, then great on you. This is the one they did in the 90s is probably more memorable than that one, to be fair, but it's, what can I say about Noddy, really? I mean, Noddy had her own car, they had all these big ears as one of the characters, all sorts of different unusual characters and unusual, basically just lots of things for Noddy to do, obviously, because Noddy's Noddy. What can I say? You know, she had her own VHS adventure, VHS releases, which the BBC helped put out on VHS along with a lot of VHS releases so that kids could have VHS releases of, you'll be able to watch when Noddy's not on the telly, which is rightfully so. Whenever you say Noddy, I know some people think about a certain Noddy who was in the music industry from Slade. No, we're not talking about him. I guess you could say like a children's sort of a children's character who had like this sort of old-fashioned outfit with and obviously the Toyland Adventures is the program that people remember the most. Then of course we got another, and then we go to the CGI section, because there were a couple of CGI programs such as Spider. Yes, there was a Spider program of a talkative spider. I know that would creep somebody out, considering if you don't like spiders, then yeah, probably try and avoid this program at all costs. No, luckily they did have a animated character kids cartoon called Spider. That was a thing. The Spider did all sorts of things that you would expect a spider to do. You know, the spider would climb up stuff. You get a little nosy. I know it's probably not best to talk about the spiders if you're not a fan of spiders, but yeah, there was a cartoon called Spider. And then we had another animation that also came out at the time called Funny Bones. Yes, they had a whole family, I guess you could say like a family, Bones, who had their own series called Funny Bones that also came out in this, which was also a part of the CGI animation series line that came to CBBC at times. It was fun. Skeletons moving about, even though we don't really know what their real faces look like, but there you go. That's Funny Bones, a classic children's BBC series, was apparently so good that they kept repeating it on CBBC, and they even brought it out as part of a best of children's video ever, label it as one of their memorable children's BBC favourites. So there you go. And then we also had another series that also got a more live action series, which actually features an actress who just so happens to be related to the whole, well, she was actually related to one of the whole Keep It Up Open All Hours comedy from back in the 80s that would eventually return to that comedy, the Still Open All Hours, a few years later. I'm talking about the the actor known as Linda Barder, who obviously is the actor who basically is a part of the Coming Outside series. Because obviously during the times when she wasn't still Open O Hours, because of course there were times when Open O Hours wasn't on, so she had to do something. She decided, you know what, I'm going to do my bit to educate kids stuff. So she decided to do a whole series called Coming Outside, where she's joined by a dog and she has like a spotted plane that she would fly over the course of Great Britain to explore different things. And yeah, and there was even times where we get to see her fly in the plane each episode and explore some unusual things. And it's just a memorable thing. And obviously it has that very memorable opening with the version of the dog translating into the real life version. Great intro, wasn't it? And Coming Outside, obviously. Yeah, and interestingly, there is pictures of the Coming Outside house, from the guy who actually, I believe it's the guy who owned the house at the time, David Benson. He's actually got a website where he's photos of, I guess you could say, the filming Coming Outside and when they were filming inside the house during the time. He's got he's got a couple of photos of that filming of the house, which was quite satisfying to see, basically filming the house as well. And yeah, very, very fascinating indeed if you want to see the filming of the house and see the process of it. But nevertheless, that was another show that was also a part of the children's BBC, which would then also get featured as part of the CBBS when they rerun those episodes as part of CBBS content. That is another children's BBC, which originally came out as part of CBBC. But yeah, so that was another program that also got the chance to appear as part of that content, obviously. Now, of course, another program I have to acknowledge is a superhero that is in the form of a teddy bear. Of course, I'm referring to Super Ted. Now, I'll be very amazed to see how many remember Super Ted as a flying teddy bear. I guess you could say his banana-style superhero companion. I always kind of wondered if it was a banana in the end, because it kind of looks like a shape of a banana, or maybe I'm getting it all wrong, but I just feel like it looks more like a banana. I don't know, it just all spottiness and the yellow. That's why I'm thinking, is it a banana? Is it not? I'm still kind of debating that one. Super Ted had some great fun, wasn't it? It was great fun seeing a teddy bear as a superhero. Really clever idea. I'm glad whoever came up with the concept did a really good job bringing Super Ted to life. And funny enough, I think you can, if I'm right, I think you can still watch those episodes of Super. Okay, maybe you can't watch Super Ted, but I mean, if they ever decide to make Super Ted streamable, then yeah, I think you can watch Super Ted on YouTube somewhere. Yeah, I mean, Super Ted, obviously, and they also had further adventures of Super Ted, which is I guess you could say a spin-off from the original. I mean, I remember the Super Ted series because Super Ted was what I remember the most, and obviously because they repeated it a lot, so it makes perfect sense for me to remember Super Ted as one of the greats of children's BBC. Yep, Super Ted, another classic children's superhero, will be remembered for years, of course, and hopefully will be remembered for years. There has recent conversations in I saw a YouTube video talking about the possibility of whether or not this program might be getting cancelled at some point. We're not too sure, but there is that possibility. Could it get cancelled? Could it not get cancelled? I can't really be sure if it is or not. It would be a bit of a shame if it did. I do remember watching a bit of Blue Peter growing up in the day. Yeah, I do remember watching Blue Peter because Blue Peter had some moments during its shows where to be fair, is there any child in the 90s who doesn't remember watching Blue Peter growing up or don't remember watching Blue Peter at some point in their lifetime? Blue Peter tends to be a favourite on children's BBC that's usually live every week, and they always have new stuff to talk about. And also from time to time they also feature stars from Doctor Who, because Doctor Who has appeared on Blue Peter in multiple occasions, and rightfully so, because loves Doctor Who, so of course they're going to feature Doctor Who in many different formats. But yeah, Blue Peter, they usually are the show where you want to learn how and kind of learn stuff. It's kind of how you look at Blue Peter. They have all sorts of different presenters over the years, and I've kind of watched like bits of them from time to time, so we might as well add Blue Peter in here, because of course I'm sure there was times when I watched Blue Peter and I just probably don't remember how over the episodes because I was just busy probably playing with toys or something once it on, but it was there in the background. Still goes on to this very day, or it might be getting cancelled soon. We're not too sure, but if it does, then it will be missed for millions of most of us who remember watching it in the early years. Now, of course, another program that also needs to be acknowledged here, and to be fair, I'm probably going to end up acknowledging it in a BBC stuff, and that's, we obviously have to acknowledge Wallace and Gromit, because of course Wallace and Gromit has been a part of children's BBC ever since the 90s, when they, well, ever since, yeah, pretty much ever since the 90s really, when Wallace and Gromit first debuted, part of the children's BBC bracket programs, and they've had countless adventures from the Wrong Trousers, and then obviously in later years we would have A Matter of Loaf and Death, To Vengeance Most Foul, which is their recent one. What can I say? Wallace and Gromit, so much great fun hearing Wallace talk about cheese and Wensleydale. Hearing Wallace saying, "It's the Wrong Trousers, Gromit," and stuff like that, it just cracks you up, really, just seeing Wallace doing funny, having those funny conversation moments. But hey, I mean, it's Wallace and Gromit at the end of the day. I'm sure most of you will watch Wallace and Gromit. Go and watch it on iPlayer if you want to refresh your memory of Wallace and Gromit, especially the new one as well, if you haven't watched that already. It's actually kind of good. I really enjoyed watching the new one. I thought it was great. Now, another program we also have to acknowledge is, of course, obviously considering one of them passed away a few years ago, so it would be worth giving a tribute to this show, Chucklevision. Yes, the Chuckle Brothers were a great duo back in the noughties. They had their own, well, in the noughties and 90s in a way, because they carry over to the noughties. Yes, Chucklevision. This was a series where we got to see the Chuckle Brothers doing funny stuff. They were basically comedians for kids. They did great. I mean, what can I say? Chucklevision, lots of funny moments, lots of funny sketches each episode. And it's just a shame that we're never going to see Chucklevision together ever again, because I mean, one of them passed away in recent times. Whilst the other one is still holding on for a few more years, and there's probably going to be a time when we're going to lose him. That's going to, it's going to devastate a lot of people. But at the end of the day, I mean, Chucklevision is still remembered as one of those pioneers of children's telly, and will be remembered as a classic for years. And I'm sure many people will go back and watch those episodes on YouTube from time to time. Maybe I will eventually, because I mean, I kind of do miss that Chucklevision. It's a great laugh watching Chucklevision on the telly on CBBC. Another children's favourite that I remember watching growing up is, of course, Mr. Blobby. Mr. Blobby had his fair share of appearances on CBBC, even though he was more notorious of working with Noel Edmonds during his late evening shows. He did have appearances on CBBC, so of course we can't really argue about the fact Mr. Blobby did appear on CBBC from time to time, to greet the kids and everything, considering he had his success in 1993. So of course he was obviously raking it in at this. SMTV Live was more of my Saturday morning thing. I don't know, maybe I watched a bit of Kicking before SMTV Live was on, but I was more into SMTV Live because that was my gig, that was my program, that was my go-to of the day. So that's why I kind of did. Yeah, but for the most part, really, I think we covered most of the children's BBC programs of the 90s. Really, definitely let me know in the comment section below, or if you remember anything from your CBBC childhood, then yeah, share them in the comment section below. I hope you guys enjoyed my sort of look back at children's BBC. See you again on May Day with SMTV Live, and also my memories of BBC.